Now, welcome to our first ever aggressive negotiations, where Naboo and I are going to friendly debate, spirited but friendly.
We'll see about that.
We will see, I guess. I don't know. I'm assuming we will still be friends and married after this.
Huh? Only if I win.
See what I deal with? But no, seriously, this is all in good fun. We do this sort of thing all the time, and we always joke about just turning the microphone on and recording our conversations, which sounds weird, but we're going to discuss Avatar. You are a huge, huge fan of Avatar. And I mean, not The Last Airbender. I'm a huge fan of that one, too. I just saw that a few years ago. It's awesome. We're talking about the James Cameron Avatar, the blue people, not the elemental people,
Hey,
I guess you could
don't
say.
call them the blue people.
Sorry,
They are the
I don't mean to
people,
be insensitive, but
not the blue people.
the Na'vi. You,
Yes,
again, huge fan of it, have seen the movie many, many times. I like it. I'm not a diehard fan of it. I like it. I thought it was a good movie. I thought it was groundbreaking at the time, 3D technology.
Mm-hmm.
And so now we have The Return coming up in 2 weeks, I think.
Right.
The Way of Water.
A little over 1 week or so.
Which we've heard that James Cameron has said it has to basically be one of the top movies of all time just to break even. It's coming out 13, 14 years after the original now. 14 years, I guess.
It's expensive.
So is this thing going to be a flop? Is it going to be successful? We've also heard Cameron recently talking about it being the cultural impact of the film and people doubting the cultural impact.
Yeah, people are talking a lot about the original film, of course, has no cultural impact, and they're talking a lot of hate about this movie, which has not even come out. Saying, does anyone even care about this movie? Does anyone even remember the blue people or their names?
Now you're calling them the blue people.
Because I'm being...
Yes, I know.
Aha.
You're trying to make a point. I get it. And I'm basically here to argue, that it didn't. That this movie is not anticipated. Not anything like a return of Star Wars, for example, when The Force Awakens a few years ago, or the prequels, 2 decades ago. That had this massive buildup, that had excitement behind it. Those films had cultural impact. I don't think Avatar had any cultural impact at all.
It's one movie. One movie is hard to be a cultural impact. It's not a franchise yet. It had one movie to do its thing. Well, one movie in a stage play by Cirque du Soleil and some comic books. I've seen and read them all.
Well, there was this little movie called Star Wars once that had significant cultural impact after one film.
Because it was pressing the boundaries of technology for the time as well.
So did Avatar.
Avatar did, and I think it affected the other movies that came out around and after it, making them push the boundaries to how far they could go.
I only think it takes one movie. If something is really that good, it should have an impact on the culture. It shouldn't take you, years and multiple films to have an impact, which...
Marvel didn't have an impact with one movie.
Iron Man had an impact. I'd say Iron Man had far more of an impact. And it came out, I think, the same year.
The superhero trend.
It didn't start the superhero trend. It perfected it.
What Avatar did is it started the technological, thing that Star Wars usually does, where it sets the bar for technology. Avatar did that. It set the new bar for technology, which in fact impacted the culture because all of your superhero movies, they all have to raise the bar as well. They had to go after these better looking CGI things because bad CGI is now not forgivable anymore.
Well, sure it is. I mean, thank you, Una, for weighing in. It's not that it's not forgivable. It still happens, and people still tolerate it. I'm saying when I think of cultural impact, I'm thinking about use the Force, Luke, or everybody knows who Yoda is. They can quote, join the dark side, and they have all these things they can quote from those films.
I will fly with you.
It's not a quote. Nobody says that except for me to you or you to me because we joke about it.
Watch, the comments will be filled with people who say that. I don't know.
Probably not.
Probably.
I mean, when it comes to cultural impact, that's what I think of. I think of people who aren't even necessarily fans who will, say, Luke, I am your father, even though that's not the quote. And there are people who think that's a Mandela effect thing. It's always been, no, I am your father. But that's cultural impact. That seeing it, people with it on T-shirts and seeing action figures. And I'm not saying Avatar has none of that, but it doesn't
Avatar has all of that.
You could go years and years walking down the street and you're never going to see anybody in an Avatar T-shirt. I mean, maybe after this film.
I think
maybe
I'm only going to wear
Avatar
T-shirts now. Just to prove you wrong.
Well, my point is it didn't have a cultural impact. It had an impact perhaps on the industry because we saw constant 3D after that, right? Every film was suddenly 3D for about 5 to 10 years until it just died again.
And then they just couldn't match
No, I agree.
The Cameron effect.
I agree. That movie is something special in 3D, and everybody wanted to copy it, not because of the film itself being...
Could that be its cultural impact? The fact that if anyone wants to talk about a really great 3D movie, that is the benchmark.
It is. For now, I think Avatar: Way of Water will be the new benchmark.
Throw that bar up even further, because that's what he does.
Yeah, and which I appreciate that. I mean, even if the story itself isn't the most fantastic thing ever, I am going for the experience of it. Mm-hmm. I'm going to see this, and we're going to IMAX, release day, and I'm expecting to be blown away and wowed. I don't know that the story is going to leave an impact on me. We'll see about that.
Right, because all he did in the first one, to be honest, is he took an existing story formula,
Dances with Wolves,
changed the location and some of the details of it. Let's say. But that doesn't mean it's a bad movie at all. And
I don't think it's a bad movie.
There's so much hate for the sequel on the internet already. It hasn't even come out.
I don't know why there's hate.
I don't understand.
I think the hate isn't so much hate as if it's more like, really? Like, you're going to spend all this money on something that really... Granted, Avatar, one of the most successful films in history, sure. But again, I don't know that people left that movie like, oh my God, I need to see more Avatar. As much as they left it, I want to see more 3D like this, which is... what other companies and studios tried to do.
Right. I mean, he says you're going to want to go and see this movie multiple times in the theater, and I believe him.
Quite possible.
Maybe I'm just tired of the world being so cynical and hating things before they happen.
I don't disagree with that. I think we have a lot of people who... I'm not saying I've never been on that boat before where I've never, kind of been skeptical of something before it comes out. It's the way of the world. It's the way of the internet, especially.
But it's not the way of the water.
I knew you were going to say that. I was trying to set you up for it.
Aw.
But no, when it comes down to it, I don't think this movie is going to be as huge as the first one. I think there's a really good chance it does well. Relatively speaking, it's going to do horribly because I don't see it doing like $3 billion worldwide, which is apparently what it needs to do.
But what if it does?
That'd be awesome.
Maybe I'm just too hopeful to live in a world.
There's nothing wrong with the hopefulness. I hope it does well too. I have no ill will against it, as I keep saying. I hope it does well. I'm simply saying I'm skeptical. I don't think it had, again, I don't think it had cultural impact. I don't think people are sitting there saying, I want to see Avatar, as much as there's a lot of people sitting there thinking, I hope that 3D looks really cool again.
But it's hard to say because we don't exactly know 100% the way the story goes. I think it's going to take another trope and use it. I think that's just what he does. He's so busy worried about the technology. I mean, I've seen the motion capture balls on surfaces of water because he wants everything to be perfect. And honestly, as long as it looks perfect and I have a good time at the theater, that's all I need.
Yeah, a lot of times that's what makes a movie, right? Did you simply enjoy it? It doesn't necessarily even have to be a good movie sometimes. It's about did you enjoy it or not.
Right.
No, I fully expect to watch Avatar and to enjoy it and maybe to want to see it again because of the spectacle or the 3D technology. I don't think I'm going to walk out of that movie thinking, oh, I'm an Avatar fan now.
Really?
I don't think so.
Well, I'm walking into it as an Avatar fan.
I know, which is fine.
I guess we'll see how I walk out of it. If I'll still be an Avatar fan or if I will have disappointment in a 3 hour movie if it doesn't have a good enough story to keep me raptured.
Well, I hope the story is good. I mean, I'm not saying that a story is not important.
If the story for 3 hours long isn't exciting and enough to make people not walk out of there going, that movie was way too long.
That's hard to do with 3 hours.
It is very hard to do with 3 hours, and that's the biggest concern I have.
I mean, Return of the King is one of my favorite movies of all time, and I walked out of there thinking, yeah, that was a very long movie. Especially the extended edition, which I've never seen in the theater, but you get my point. Even something great can linger. Though I was fine with all the endings and everything. I still remember watching it in the theater a couple times, and you could tell people were like, oh, is it over? Nope, not over. Sit back down. Mm-hmm. Anyway, I'm getting off topic.
As long as, like I said, I mean, he has so much faith in this movie. I want to have that same faith he does. I mean, he's like, people are like, oh, when am I going to go to the bathroom? It's a 3 hour movie. And he goes, well, go to the bathroom whenever you want. You'll just see the scene you missed when you come back and watch it again. Because he believes in this movie so much. And I want to I want to believe in it too.
I want to believe in it. I'm here to debate the fact that it's not going to be as big as it needs to be to recoup its cost. I'm here to argue that the first one didn't make a cultural impact. People aren't sitting there quoting Avatar. Nobody does that.
I do.
It is a movie that I don't know that it would have been forgotten, again, considering its technological, achievements, the 3D. I think people remember that experience. You just don't think they remember the story.
And that's why you will never be one of the people.
I see you. See, that didn't, nobody says that. There are things
maybe
in there
they will
that...
after.
Maybe. There are things in there that, quote-unquote, could be quotable, but they didn't catch on because I don't think anybody was, left that movie thinking, my God, that story was great. Not the same way...
I'm going to rewatch it and write down all the good quotes so that you can add them to your repertoire.
Yeah. All right, so I guess that's all we got for you this time. So take to the comments below. Tell us what you think of Avatar: Way of the Water. What are your predictions for this film? Do you think it made a cultural impact? How do you think it's going to do at the box office? Do you think James Cameron is crazy or not? And tell us what you think about this fun format, aggressive negotiations. We can do this all day. Whatever the case may be, leave your comments below. Let's talk some Avatar, because nobody else does. And until next time, thanks for watching.